In today's lesson, I was going to be gone this morning, so I thought I'd record this. We're going to pull everything together that we've been working on. So throughout this unit, we've learned several ways to represent linear relationships. Remember, linear is when it makes a straight line. The other thing about linear is when our variables are to the first power. So make sure you add this to your notes. Variables to the first power. You've learned ways to move back and forth between these representations, between a table, between a graph, and an equation. Next unit, we're going to even do more of this, but we're going to be getting ready for our test, which will be next week. So when we are looking at a table, remember, one of the key things in our table is that we're looking at an XY table. One of the best things you really always need to know is when X is, what this number is, because remember, this is our Y-intercept. The other thing you're going to be looking at tables is as the values change, you're going to be look at how does the y change to get our slope. So when we look at a table, this 0 point is always our y-intercept, but how do we find the slope in a table? Remember, slope is going to be, and I'm going to put this triangle, which means change in y. Remember, we subtracted to find our slope. Change in y divided by, this triangle means change in x. So change in x, change in y. So we got to compare those each time when we are looking at our tables. When we look at a graph, anytime you're looking at a graph, you're always looking at your y and x axis. And when you look at your graph, you are simply trying to find what is your y-intercept. The other thing you're looking for is what is your rise to run to the next point. So that's our slope. So always finding our m, which is always the rise over the run. And that helps us to write an equation. And in the last one, when we actually have an equation, we are always looking at the form being y equals mx plus b, where we know up to this point now that m is our slope, it's a number, it's a ratio of rise to run, and b is our y-intercept. And that y-intercept can be found in a graph and in a table. So as you look at your notes, here it says find the slope and y-intercept of each equation and write the equation. So the first thing we would want to do, first thing, where is our y-intercept? We go to this point. And as we look at that, we can very clearly see that in this case it's 0, 6. Next thing we need is our slope. Now, since I am going down, 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 I'm going down 3. As I go down 3, that's a negative 3. Then I'm going to the right 1. Since I go to the right 1, that's a positive 1. So at this point, I can look at my equation, and my equation for graph 1 is going to be y equals, which you see below, negative 3x plus 6. In this next one, I also notice the line's going up, so it's a positive slope. My y-intercept is 0, 6. What is the slope? It is a rise of 3 and a run of 1. So m is equal to a positive 3 over 1. And you can see the two equations that are listed. Okay? When I look at my table, anytime I'm looking at a table, what I need to see is, first off, can I find my y-intercept? Y-intercept is always when x equals 0, it's the y value. Now in the first table, oh, it's wonderful. It's right here. I can identify it right off. 0, negative 1. So when I look at that, I know that at this point, my y-intercept happens to be, my pen isn't working great here, my y-intercept happens to be, as I look at that, b is equal to negative 1. Now on this one, I can't tell as well. But now I need to look for the slope. And the key thing to remember with slope is that slope is the change in y divided by change in x. So how is my y value changing? Well, from negative 7 to negative 10 to negative 7, I am adding 3. And it looks like I continue to add 3. So it almost looks like people can often make the mistake that the slope is 3, because the y is changing by 3. But we have to look at how does our x change. And in this table, our x is changing by 2. We're adding 2 each time. So if I'm going to put the change in y, so m equals the change in y, which is 3, divided by the change in x, and my change in x happens to be 2, my equation will be y equals my slope, 3 over 2x plus negative 1 is my equation. When I look at this one, oh, the x's are going up by 1. That's kind of nice. And it does that all the way up. And the y is changing by minusing 0.5. And notice I keep doing that. But I don't have a 0 point here. Could I go backwards since I'm subtracting 0.5 each time? Could I do just the opposite and actually add 0.5 onto 4.5? And if I added 0.5, I would end up at the 0.05. So in this equation, my y-intercept is 5. My slope, my rate of change in y, is a negative 0.5 divided by the change in x, which is 1. Now, some people don't like to have negative 0.5 over 1. They might want to write it as a fraction, negative 1/2, or just negative 0.5. What is my equation for that second graph? My equation is going to be y equals negative 1/2 x plus 5. Or, if I wanted to write it with a decimal, I could have y equals negative 0.5 x plus 5. If you need to pause the video to make sure you have this all written down, please pause the video. The last one is looking for a slope and y-intercept in an equation. And in this case, we are asked to find the slope and y-intercept. So if I am asked to find the slope, it's really nice. Both of these are almost written in slope-intercept form. Here, my m is always the coefficient of x, which in this case is 2.5, and my y-intercept would be 5. Now, if I was going to graph this, I would want to think of it as an ordered pair 0, 5 for the y-intercept. Here, I might want to first rewrite my equation. It is negative 3x plus 20. When I rewrite the equation, I now can see that my slope is negative 3, or I could write it as negative 3 over 1, but negative 3 is fine, and my y-intercept is 20, which means my start point on the graph would be at 0, 20. As you do the worksheet, you are going to, first on the last table, what I want you to do is to graph these 4 lines on the graph below. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at each of these graphs, and you should be able at this point be able to tell me the slope and y-intercept. And what you are now going to do is you're going to plot each of those. So if I was going to do the y equals 3x, I'm going to start at 0, 0. Why? Because it's plus and there's nothing here. My y-intercept is 0. My slope, I might write it as a fraction, is 3 over 1. So 1, 2, 3, and over 1. I am now going to continue that so that I kind of fill my graph. And again, I could go down 3 and over 1. And I now want to draw a line connecting those points. So I now draw my line connecting the points. And I put arrows on because we are continuing it going. And now I'm just going to graph the other 3 equations. So please graph the y equals 5 plus 3x, 10 plus 3x, and negative 5 plus 3x. And be ready to look at those answers with your graphs tomorrow in class, telling me what do you notice about those, what are things that are similar, and what is different. And what is different in these 2 graphs. What do they have in common, and what's different? You're going to be working on the worksheet. You are asked to find the slope and the y-intercept in each, and as you do that, I want you to make sure you've rewritten the equation in this form. Y equals 1x, 1y equals, and this is going to be your slope, plus, and this is going to be your number back here. And I am always looking for, first in this form, and then for you telling me m equals and b equals for each one. You're going to finish that throughout. Then the next one is asking you to find the slopes. Can you just count Definitely. Can you have to find your change in y over change in x for the tables? You should be able to do that looking back at your notes. And then in the equations, tell me your slopes and your the slope of each one. And then it asks you some questions, and the last page of the worksheet asks you to find the slope of each line and write the equation. So for each one, I need the m equals, and then I need you to tell me m equals, and all of your answers will look like this for A, B, C, D, and E. Thanks, hope this made sense. Tomorrow we definitely have a quiz on slope y-intercept and finding slope.